الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. صلى الله عليه وسلم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. إن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Brothers and sisters, as we continue our journey through this very important moment of our heritage and our history known as the Hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And wallahi, dear brothers and sisters, we can spend every single week talking about the wisdoms and everything in the Quran that's connected to the Hijrah. But let's put everything in perspective today, inshaAllah. From the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the virtues of Suratul Kahf. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, whoever reads Suratul Kahf on Fridays, the light that is emitted from the earth to the heavens in virtue of Suratul Kahf. Why Suratul Kahf? Why Friday? And what does this have to do with the hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Brothers and sisters, there's a direct connection. The incident that occurred of the sleepers of the cave, even if you were to do a simple search of the sleepers, the 7 sleepers of the cave, every culture, every religion, every category of human beings, no matter where they live, have some type of expounding on this topic. What if I was to tell you that Suratul Kahf was revealed before the Hijrah to let Rasulullah ﷺ know how the Hijrah is going to go? The Hijrah is direct connection. What happened with the sleepers of the cave? And we're going to make a comparison with the sleepers of the cave and Rasulullah ﷺ and his Hijrah. The surah is named Al-Kahf, which means the cave. Before the prophethood of Rasulullah ﷺ, he would spend time And in that spending time, he got revelation where? In the Ghar of Hira, the cave of Hira. Amongst his travels in the Hijrah, him and Abu Bakr stopped where? Ghar al-Thawr, the cave of Thawr. The surah is named Al-Kahf to strengthen the resolve of Rasulullah of what's to come in the future, and for him to now get in the mindset of migrating the same way the people of the cave, the boys of the cave, had to migrate away from where they lived to the cave. And the story, which we're going to get into today, occurs in a very beautiful time. The incident and the sleep, the slumber of these young men occur 150 years after the death of Isa alayhi salam. And then you take 309 years, and after they passed away, Rasulullah's prophethood began 150 years after that. I want you to think of the middle path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen for the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu that even the inspiration that Rasulullah is going to get occurred in the middle path between him and Isa alayhi salam's prophethood. In a town, in a village, in a city, there was a king, a tyrant king by the name of Daqyunus. Daqyunus was from amongst those tyrants that didn't want to have anything to do with the religion of Isa alayhi salam, because the people who have lots of zeal with the oneness of Allah and the prophethood of any of the prophets, the tyrants see it as a threat to their power. That why does Isa alayhi salam, wal-iyadhu billah, why does Allah have more respect than I do? The tyrant thinks. Nobody deserves that respect as I do, the tyrant believes. So what he started doing was, he started getting his agents to little by little get rid of those people who were religious or priests. And there was one priest who was somewhat in hiding. He knew his time was coming. And there happened to be a group of boys individually learning from this priest of the oneness of Allah. None of them actually knew each other. So think of it as you will, as every single one of these boys were under the tutelage of this priest to remain steadfast on the deen of Allah and at Tawheed. In this very lengthy story, Daqyunus now searches, and his agents find the priest and they assassinate him. So there's the last person that was left to teach them Tawheed was no longer there. Who takes the reins now? Those boys. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to them as fata in the Quran, إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ وَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدًى. This actually means that they didn't even reach the age of 20. They could have been 13 to 18, all of them. Very young boys. But Allah says what? They believed in Allah, فَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدًى, that we increased them in their guidance. Not just guidance towards Allah, but guidance to navigate this world. And we're going to find out how today, inshallah. So Daqyunus now is hosting a big party. And this takes place in what we call today Jordan now, in a remote city of what's referred to as in Bilad al-Sham in Jordan. He's having this party, the works. Obviously alcohol, dancing, all types of lewdness. And the way they used to set these parties up is that you would have to either bow to the tyrant or a statue at the entrance of going to the party. And these boys obviously didn't want to partake in this grand party to celebrate the king. So they found themselves walking away and they ended up near a tree, and not too far from the tree was a cave. And one of the boys sits down, he sees another, until there's 7 boys. Now the surah says that the people will say, ثَلَاثَةٌ, that there were 3 boys. وَرَابِعُهُمْ كَلْبُهُمْ, and the 4th was the dog. And the next portion says what? That there was 5, or the 6th was a dog. The 4th and there was 5th was a dog, and then that there were 7 boys, وَثَامِنُهُمْ كَلْبُهُمْ, and the 8th was the dog. Allah in the Quran says that not many people know except a few of their number. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anh says, I am from amongst those few Allah is referring to, and there were 7. But let's backtrack a little bit. How was this surah revealed? The mushrikeen al-Makkah, again, when Muhammad ﷺ knew that the hijrah was coming, they thought to themselves, before we take this last effort to execute Muhammad ﷺ and those who remain in Mecca, let's have one more attempt to make Muhammad ﷺ, wal-iyadhu billah, into a liar. So what did they do? They said, we're going to go to the Jewish rabbis and ask them about specific questions that the Torah and the Injil have no mention of. You know how sometimes when we have the Quran and the Sunnah, and later on, many years, the jurists of Islam, they come together and they develop rules and understandings generations later? They wanted that type of information that no one else has access to. So they went to the Jewish rabbis and they said, what's something we can ask Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he won't have the answer to? Give us something. We want to stop him in his tracks. So they said, we'll put our heads together, we'll come up with some questions, and we'll let you know. So they came up with 3 questions. Number 1, who were the sleepers of the cave? The Ashab al-Kahf. How many years did they sleep, and how many were there? These were the 3 questions. So the Mushrikeen al-Makkah thanked the Jewish rabbis, went back to Mecca, and gathered all of the people of Mecca, or the majority, but especially those in power, and brought Muhammad ﷺ to the stand and said, we have 3 questions for you. If you can't answer these questions, then you're not a prophet. Muhammad ﷺ said, okay, what are these 3 questions? They said, tell us who the sleepers of the cave are. Number 2, tell us how many years they slept for. And number 3, how many were they in number? What does Rasulullah say? He says, I'm going to tell you tomorrow. That's it. That's all he says. Next day comes about, no revelation from Allah. 2 days go by, no revelation from Allah. 3 days go by, no revelation from Allah. 5 days goes by, no revelation from Allah. Muhammad ﷺ is full of anxiety now, that this was the opportunity to teach them about Allah and the prophethood of myself, and there's no revelation. And now they're making fun of Rasulullah. This was a test. 10 days goes by, no revelation. 15 days go by, and this portion of Surah Al-Kahf is revealed. Why 15 days? Why so long? This is what we refer to as another miracle and a blessing in disguise. The first is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching Muhammad saying he was teaching Muhammad something. وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا. Don't say I'm going to do something tomorrow. إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهِ. Except that you say, Insha'Allah. This is the moment when Allah taught Muhammad the seriousness of saying Insha'Allah. God forbid we get to a point where we say Insha'Allah to somebody and they think it's never going to happen. Right? This is the severity of Insha'Allah. that revelation was delayed because of this small construct, insha'Allah, made up of 3 words. But what is the wisdom behind this? That this 15 days of Muhammad ﷺ not getting revelation proves that he's the final messenger. Because if he knew the answer, which no one else did, that means that someone else knew the answer. He couldn't have gone anywhere in 15 days to seek out any answer. So Allah delayed this portion. So this would mean a fact that he does get revelation because he actually doesn't know the information. And no one else knows the information. The only way he can get the information if he gets it through revelation. And that's when Surah Al-Kahf was revealed. So let's continue, inshallah. Surah Al-Kahf is revealed to Muhammad ﷺ, and within Surah Al-Kahf is a story of the boys of the cave. And this journey that they took is going to mimic the journey of the hijrah of Rasulullah ﷺ and strengthen Muhammad ﷺ's resolve. So now, Yunus finds out about these boys that all gather. And what these boys start doing is, they start being of service to their community. They start helping out the poor, right? If you look at the description of Rasulullah ﷺ, pre-prophethood, this is exactly what they were doing. Helping those people in need. Even some narrations that Ibn Kathir alluded to is even milking the animals for the elderly that couldn't. So they were dispersing amongst these people in service and teaching them about Tawheed, to remind them about Tawheed of Allah and the oneness of Allah and the messengers that Allah sends. Now this now threatens Yunus. So eventually what does he do? He sends out his assassins to assassinate these boys. So what do these boys do? They make a plan. They say, when all these people are after us and we've done something good, we have to go somewhere else and come back later. Their plan wasn't, people think that they were actually scared for their lives. That's actually not the case. Do you know how Rasulullah ﷺ went to Medina and came back to Mecca? Do you think that this story is a coincidence that happened with them too? Rasulullah ﷺ didn't flee to Medina because he was scared. He went back, regrouped, developed power, and then came back for Fath of Mecca, right? This is exactly what happened to the boys of the cave. They go, settle in the cave. They end up falling asleep. The people start remembering them. And you know when we remember people, we commemorate them and we have placards, posters. We have a special day for them, right? So there's a resistance that happened amongst the people against the king. When Allah says, Ashabul Kahfi wal Raqim, Raqim actually means a placard. A placard of where they ingrained the names of all of those boys to remember them. This is all while they're asleep. The king gets taken over by his grandson, or some narrations say his son, becomes closer to the deen of Allah, and the generations continue until 300 years later, that whole area is believers in Allah. These boys have no idea, they're asleep, right? When they wake up, and Allah took care of them so well that when Allah says, وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتِ الْيَمِينَ, that we made them intentionally toss and turn. Allah's talking about very, very descriptively how He took care of them. And even on top of the cave, if you go there today, there's still a little hole for their comfort and their oxygen, and so sun can come in. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took care of them very well. And the dog that was guarding the cave was, the surah says that if you were to see this dog, you wouldn't even think twice, you just run away from the cave that was guarding the cave. Who guarded the cave of Rasulullah when he was on his hijrah? The spider and the web. Right? The same thing happened with the boys of the cave. And the reason why I keep mentioning this is how we look at the verses of the Quran, how they're all connected. A majority of them, in one way or other, are connected to the hijrah. So then these boys, they wake up. And they say to each other, what? Let one of us go and get some food, but make sure that nobody recognizes you. وَلْيَتَلَطَّفْ. And be very, very generous and courteous. Don't cause any attention. And if you look at the word, which the root word is al-lutf in the Quran, in Surah Al-Kahf, which occurs in the 15th juz and the 16th juz, that word is exactly in the center of the Quran. From all the words that precede it, from the beginning of the Quran, and all the words that come after it. It's exactly in the center of the Quran. وَلْيَتَلَطَّفْ. And be generous. Be kind. Be those people when someone sees you, they're guided to Allah's deen. Right? So they set out. Remember, they have the currency in their pockets that are 309 years old. But they still, it's very tricky. They can't be recognized. So they're seeing things that change completely. If you go to a place 20 years later, it changes so much. So they're seeing these changes, but they have to stay quiet because they don't want to cause any attention. So when they show the money to the vendor who's selling them food, he looks at it and he says, "Where did you get this from? This seems like something that's a treasure." He says, "What are you talking about? This is what I'm using to buy my food." He said, "This is generations old." And people actually think that the person is playing a prank maybe. They don't know how to take this person seriously. Then he opens up and starts talking about Daq Yunus, and people start laughing. So what do you mean Daq Yunus? What? One of the people of their deen, if you want to say one of the priests, sees this big commotion and he asks him his name. They say, "Don't worry, everyone here is a believer. You have nothing to worry about any king named Daq Yunus, someone going to kill somebody who believes in the oneness of Allah." And when he looks up his name on the placard that they engraved, his name was on there. They said, "Where's the rest of the boys? Where's the rest of the people?" They went back. Everyone got accustomed to these boys, and they died very soon after that because they couldn't live in what was considered life 309 years later. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants a change to occur, it doesn't have to happen right away. It can happen generations later. These boys, they thought that they were going to go back and they just slept a day or part of a day. It was 309 years. Why is Allah telling this to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this story? That situations that happened to you, Ya Rasulullah, before all of this, they may have been a greater effect as far as numbers are concerned. But your journey to Medina is a different type of difficulty, but Allah is going to take care of you. So how does He take care of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? You know how a mother may give, or a father may tell a story to the child before going to sleep, or when they have a nightmare, to calm them down, sleep them next to them and tell them a story. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't have a mother and father in his prophethood, and even way before his prophethood. Who did the tarbiyah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him stories to strengthen his resolve. And for us believers, strengthens our resolve by way of these stories. That number one, you don't have to be more than 15 years old to change the world. Is this 7 group of boys that changed the entire landscape of the world forever. So much so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala includes this story in the Quran to strengthen the resolve of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they did go back. And when they went back, they realized everything changed to their town. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after Medina, heads back to Mecca for Fath Mecca. What happens? He sees, and the believers, to the point, some of the believers thought that this was the day of revenge because of them being taken away from their families. Rasulullah overheard some of the Sahaba saying, Al-yawmu yawmul malhama. Today is the day that we get our revenge on these people. And Muhammad says what? Al-yawmu yawmul marhama. This is the day of rahmah. such a similarity is struck in for us as believers, brothers and sisters, that we don't read Surah Al-Kahf just for the ajr. It's beautiful if you can do so. But see what changes, what you see in this world that are occurring, that Allah mentions are going to happen in the Quran, that Rasulullah mentions in the hadith, and we see those changes happening in front of us. Number one, so nothing's new to us as believers and nothing shocks us. Number two, we don't believe that we're doomed forever, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as long as we uphold and we understand His Quran and the relationship of Muhammad ﷺ as the final messenger, nothing can affect us even if it physically harms us or it has to ostracize us. At the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the giver of our reward. Sometimes we're in very, very difficult situations and we think that this is it. If I don't get through this difficulty, then I have no hope for my life. Allah protect us and our children. We have, which almost is not supposed to make sense, but it's happening, it's a reality. We have such an alarming rate, and this may not seem connected, but is very connected. We have such an alarming rate of depression and anxiety and even suicide, even in the Muslim community. We think that it was never going to happen to our community. It's happening now. Same numbers, same everything. What's happening to us believers that we either are not propagating the deen the way it's supposed to, that people can give up hope as believers, as saying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and just take their own lives. A great story, brothers and sisters, for your children, for youth, and for yourselves, is get inspiration from the boys of the cave. Surah Al-Kahf, if you can read it every Friday, and you understand what's happening, it is all the inspiration you need to continue. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only revealed Surah Al-Kahf to us, that would be more than enough. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protection. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the secrets of what's hidden and what's known of the Quran. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to love Rasulullah more than we love ourselves. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to create the love of Allah in our hearts, that no matter how choppy the world becomes, we're going to pass. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to safeguard our iman. For if Allah wanted to, could give it to somebody else. If we don't value our iman, Allah can give it to somebody else. Ya Allah, even though we don't value the iman and your iman the way it's supposed to, please preserve our deen, Ya Allah, within our hearts. أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو التواب الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. أقيم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
استووا اعتدلوا يرحمكم الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We need to find out a way to get this man his own TV show. It's better than all the other garbage on TV these days. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Ahmed. He made, as he always does, some amazing connections, so I'm going to try my best to make a quick connection here with what he was saying. He mentioned a couple of things. The boys in the cave, he said, maybe their age was between, 13 and 18, I think you said? Right, and then he also made a comment towards the end of his khutbah about you can be 15 years old and make an impact, a positive impact, and change the world, right? So we have a youth program here. I've been announcing it. It's every Friday. It will be this Friday. It'll be tonight, inshallah, after Maghrib Salah. And it's led by Sheikh Amr himself. And the youth program is for high schoolers, kids in junior high, young professionals, pretty much anyone of that age range and up. And Sheikh Amr leads it, and we've had it every week, and the topic is personalities of the Sahaba. So what you heard today, that happens every Friday, specific for our youth. If you have youth at home, please encourage them to come here at Friday nights and just sit and listen and bond with Sheikh Amr, with their colleagues, their peers, I should say, and hear this insight. Sheikh Amr was born and raised in this area, Lombard East, right? You went to Lombard East, not too far from your Lombard. So there's nothing that he hasn't seen that our youth are seeing today. There's nothing that he hasn't encountered. So he's a great asset that we have. So please encourage your youth to come to this program every Friday after Maghrib Salah, inshallah. Please also keep an eye out on the programs for the Itqan Academy, weekday evening school, Sunday school, and our early childhood care center. Last but not least, Mohsin, as I've been announcing, is having their fall gala, their annual fall gala on September 30th, so that's next Friday at Belvedere Banquets, inshallah. So please pick up a flyer or make a donation, or better yet, try to purchase a ticket and attend. Jazakallah khair. Please donate to ICW on your way out and grab some lunch for purchase. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.